Hi everyone, I'm Chef Susie with Escoffier Online. Welcome to our live session this morning. Today we are going to be making a very classic French dessert. This is called the Paris-Brest, or if you were in Paris, you would say Paris-Brest. And this is a round dessert. It's made from the Pate puff pastry, and it originated in 1891, so it's been around for a long time. So I'm sure you could imagine there's limitless variations on this. And it was invented to commemorate a bicycle race from Paris to Nice at that time by a pastry chef. So maybe when you're making the Paris-Brest, you'll find yourself speaking a little bit of French because of its French roots. But anyway, let's go ahead and talk about what we're going to make today. Okay, so we're going to just make our simple pate choux. We've made this a lot of times before. I'm going to be making it again. I've got my milk and my water on the stove, which is your liquid, and I have my fat, which I'm going to be using butter. You can use all milk for softer pate choux, and it's going to have a little bit more of a distinct flavor. You can use all water too if you want to cut down on costs. You can use shortening instead of butter as long as you have some sort of fat in there, and you can also do a combination of two. So I like to use half milk and half water, and I like to use butter, and I'm using unsalted butter. So we're going to warm this. We're going to bring it to a simmer. I've got some all-purpose flour. We're going to be making a paste. Then we're going to cool it, and we're going to add the eggs, and then we're going to pipe the Paris-Brest, and then I have one that I made earlier that we're going to go ahead and finish. So please let me know if you have any questions. And our Paris-Brest today, oftentimes Paris-Brest is going to be made with an Italian cream that's kind of a custard and a meringue, and typically the flavor would be a praline flavor. So I'm going to change it up a little bit today because I wanted to get some red in here because of the holiday season. So I'm going to use a base that's a pastry cream with some praline. I've got some strawberries. We're going to finish it off with some whipped cream and powdered sugar. And you can just do any flavor combinations, absolutely limitless. Classic flavor, as I said, is the praline. And what I use to flavor my pastry cream is Justin's hazelnut butter. I like this because it doesn't have a lot of sugar in it for something like this, but you can absolutely use Nutella. It's a great flavor too. And just cut back on the sugar in the pastry cream because Nutella has a lot of sugar in it. But either one, this is the one that I use today. So looking at our mixture, just kind of working on its own a little bit here. I like to bring this to a simmer before I add my flour. And please let me know if you have any questions. These are all things that we've made before, and we're just putting them together in a different way with some different flavors. So I'm just wondering if anyone else has made the Paris-Brest, and if you've done any unique flavor combinations. And sometimes you'll see this with just some flavored whipped cream or pastry cream in the bottom. I've seen these with a little bit of jam under the pastry cream too. That's kind of fun. This time of year, a little bit of strawberry under the pastry cream would be nice too. And you can also make these individual. I'm going to be making a large one today, but you can also make them small, a single serving size for a restaurant. Okay. We're going to turn up our heat a little bit. So for the pate choux paste, once I have this fat and liquid coming to a little bit of a simmer, I'm going to be adding my flour. And you'll see a lot of different formulas for these, but you're always going to want to get a film on the bottom of the pot once you add this flour mixture. It's really important that you're cooking the paste all the way. That's a telltale sign. I don't recommend using a Teflon or a non-stick pot because you'll never get the film. And what happens is you actually end up frying this paste a little bit in a pot like that. You can use them, but just be mindful of that. Don't cook too long in those Teflon pots. Okay, so this is coming to a simmer. And I'm going to be using my wooden spoon for most of this, but I always start out my flour mixture with my whisk, and then I kind of switch over. For me, it gets incorporated a little bit better, but you can use the wooden spoon the whole time. So this is being brought to a simmer. And let's go ahead and add the rest of that. And please let me know if you have any questions. And you really want to cook this good until you get that film on the bottom. Okay, so once I get my flour in, I kind of get my whisk out of here. And it's okay just to use a wooden spoon the whole time, but this is just how I prefer to use it. It makes a little bit of a mess, but that's okay. Okay, so let's go ahead and cook this paste. And please let me know if you have any questions. So it's really going to come together, and you're going to see that film on the bottom of the pot. This is really what you're looking for. This is cooking nicely, and I want to show the film on the bottom of the pot. So just be sure that you're always getting that, and you know that you're in good shape. Then it goes over to the mixer. And this needs to cool a little bit before we add our eggs. But also be careful that you are not mixing this too much. Okay, it's going to cool down, and then we're going to go ahead and add our eggs. Okay, so one other really important thing about the pate choux is when you're adding the eggs, you want to be careful because it's not always going to take all of these eggs, and sometimes you'll even need a little bit more. So what you're going to want to do is add them a couple at a time, but when you get near the end with the last two, be careful because it might not take all of the egg, and then your mixture could actually end up being too runny. So we're going to let this cool. And please let me know if you have any questions. Then we'll go ahead and we're going to do our piping of our Paris-Brest. So while that's cooling, we can go ahead and prepare our pan. Okay, so as a guide, I always draw a circle on my parchment. And then I turn this over, and I just use this for a guide. You can use a cake pan too to draw your circle. And you can also just put a board like this under your parchment and you can still see it. So whatever way you like to do it, but when you're going in the circle, I definitely recommend having a guide. Okay, so our pan is all ready to go. So we've just got to finish up our paste here. We've got to let this cool down a little bit more. And this is just super nice for this time of year because it's a ring, and you could definitely decorate it for the holiday season. And it's pretty delicious with the praline and strawberries. We're going to put some whipped cream on top as well. Okay, so this is just about cooled down. Did we have a question? No? Okay. We're also going to be sprinkling some nuts on top once we pipe our paste. So I've got some almonds, and you could use a lot of different nuts, but classically this is done with the almond. You can use sliced almonds with or without the skins. I always like the skins. I just think that they add some contrast, but either way. Okay. This is definitely cooled down, so we're going to go ahead and add our eggs in just a minute. Okay, so as I said, a little bit at a time. You kind of have to give them a chance to work their way in. And you don't want this to become too runny. So it's going to kind of look a little broken like this the first time you add the eggs before it actually comes together. In this paste, you don't want it too thick once the eggs have been added. It should kind of hang off the paddle a little bit. Okay, so this is also great for making eclairs, cream puffs. So if you're making a batch, you could make a Paris-Brest and then make some extra eclairs and cream puffs as well. Okay, paste is coming together nicely.
I have a question.
Yes.
So, hi Stephanie, this is Shauna.
Hi, how are you?
So, tell me, I usually add some flour in that. Okay, or just add a little bit of flour as you think that it's getting too runny.
The question is if your paste gets too runny, can you add a little bit of flour to this mixture? It's going to completely change the dynamics of the mixture. I definitely don't recommend doing that. That's why we always recommend add these eggs slowly at the end. It might not take all the egg, and you actually might even need a little bit more too, but adding flour to the mixture is really adding an uncooked flour because you cooked it on the stove when you made the paste. So what you can do, if you get a batch that's a little bit too runny, you could make another little batch of paste and add it to that, and that will kind of bring it, it'll get it a little bit thicker again.
Okay,
That
that's
makes
interesting.
sense? Okay. All right, so I've got my last 2 eggs in, and it seems a little thick, so we're going to take a look at it. I might even have to add an extra egg, which happens sometimes. So we're going to let this mix. And it does seem a little bit thick. We're going to go ahead and scrape it down, and I might have to grab an extra egg or 2, which does happen every now and then. For me, it seems like this happens more often in the wintertime when it's a little dry outside, and all of our flour ingredients have tendency to be a little bit drier. So let's go ahead and take a look. Okay, this is a little on the thick side. I'm going to grab a couple more eggs, and we'll put maybe 1 or 2 more in, and then we will be all set. And please let me know if you have any questions. Okay, I'll try 1, and then we'll probably have to add another one. That's my hankering. You want this soft enough where it's not going to hold its shape really well. It's going to kind of loosen up a little bit. It's not going to be as stiff as something like buttercream would be. So I think I'm going to go ahead and add an extra egg, or maybe even a half. And we have a question. The question is, do the eggs need to be room temperature? And they absolutely do. This is going to be so much better for the mix. Okay, so I'm not sure if I need this whole egg, so what I'm going to do is I'm breaking it up a little bit before I put it in so I just don't get all white or all yolk. I think it's going to take the whole thing, but I want to hold back a little bit. Okay, so the paste is almost made. Pate paste, a little bit of a delicate thing to do. If by chance you are making this for the first time, no worries, just keep practicing at it if you're not getting the right consistency. This is something that we don't always get it on the first time. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and add the rest of this egg. We actually might need just a little bit more. Okay, I think the paste looks great. So we are going to go ahead and we are going to do our piping. Okay, it has a nice yellow color to it. Coming off the paddle nicely. And keep in mind, when you're making these eclairs, cream puffs, and the Paris-Brest from the Pate paste, this does freeze very well. So you can make these and you can store them in the freezer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pipe this. I've got a large star tip in my bag. And we're just going to pipe. I'm going to pipe inside of this ring that I made, and you can make these whichever size you like, whether you want them larger or smaller. They're pretty fun to explore. Let's go ahead and do our piping, and then we will go ahead and finish off the Paris-Brest that I made earlier. My tip flipped in here. That's been known to happen. Okay. No. There we go. Okay. All right. So if your tip flips, you can just kind of flip it around and then clean it off a little bit. Okay. So piping, I'm piping inside of my circle. I'm just kind of going around. And I make this probably about 1.5 inches wide. And like I said, the sizes are limitless. But the shape, if you want the classic Paris-Brest, you will want to use the round shape to commemorate the bicycle wheel. So what I do is I just go around, and you don't have to worry about getting it exactly perfect. If your parchment's sliding around, you can always put a little bit of the paste in your corners. That's going to help hold it down, especially if you're baking on the convection setting on your oven. That could blow your paper around a little bit too. Okay. So what we're going to do next is we are going to be putting a ring on top. And please let me know if you have any questions. Okay, what I do is I put a ring on top. This is going to help with the height. Okay, it's all set and ready to go. Okay, so for the baking of the Paris-Brest, typically pâte you bake at a higher temperature. But my Paris-Brest, I usually bake these at about 350, 375 at the most. And this kind of gives them a chance to bake on the inside without getting too dark. So I bake this at about 350. You can go 365 too. And I usually bake something like this, depending on your oven. It's going to be about 45 or 50 minutes. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and sprinkle our almonds on. If you notice that your almonds are getting too dark and your pâte choux is still not done, I recommend covering this with a piece of foil. You can just place it on top. You won't hurt it. Or a piece of parchment. It's going to help protect your almonds and give your pâte choux paste a chance to bake. Okay, so this is our Paris-Brest. So let's go ahead and set this aside. And I've got one that I made earlier. Okay. So with the pâte choux, when you're baking the pâte choux, be sure that you're baking it all the way. If your pâte choux deflates, that means it's not baked enough, didn't have enough structure, your proteins didn't coagulate all the way, and it just couldn't hold its shape, and all the steam released, and that's what made it collapse. When in doubt with pâte choux, leave it in an extra minute. It's not going to hurt it. These get a deep color. As you can see, the one that I made earlier, it's got a nice deep golden brown, even like a mahogany brown color to it. And it held its shape pretty well. Didn't have any deflation. Some of my nuts are a little bit dark, but you can kind of take those off a little bit too. Okay, so this is the Paris-Brest once it's been baked. Let's go ahead and finish this one that I have. So this is great because it's a wreath shape this time of year. You can do so many things with this. I'm going to take it off this board. So before you fill your Paris-Brest, you are going to want to, it's okay that you cut it on your surface like a counter or board, but before you fill this, make sure that you're putting it on a cake circle or a plate so you can move it around because it's going to get heavy because we're going to be putting fruit in it. So what I'm doing is I'm just carefully slicing it in half. And please let me know if you have any questions. But make sure you put this on something so you can move it around once it's filled. A pretty tray would be nice, or just even a cake circle like the one I have here. Okay, so I've cut all the way through. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at this. And okay, so the inside we should have some webbing, some hollowness. This is classic pate choux. This is exactly what it looks like. What happens is we don't have a leavener, so these are, this is leavened by steam, so these are all pockets from the steam. So let's go ahead and fill this with some praline cream that I made earlier. Okay, so like I said, I just added some hazelnut paste to my pastry cream, and we're going to go ahead and pipe this in. And please let me know if you have any questions. Okay, so this holds its shape pretty well. And you can make this as strong in hazelnut as you want. I kind of have a tendency to go a little bit overboard because I just love hazelnut. And we're going to pipe this on the bottom. We're going to stand up some strawberries. So this is just a little bit of a different version of the Paris-Brest. Okay, so what we're going to be doing once we pipe this in, we're going to put strawberries on the top. That's going to add some weight. So I usually don't pipe my pastry cream. Oh, I have a hole in my bag. Oh, Okay, let's see if we can kind of work around that a little bit. Not sure. I'll try to close it up. Okay, there we go. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm not piping all the way to the edge because strawberries are going to squish this out a little bit, and you don't want it to actually come out of your shell. Okay, so the mixture is thick enough that I can hold this seam together, but if this was the pate choux, I would recommend getting another bag because that stuff is sticky and it can get pretty messy quick. And we have a question. The question is it similar to a cream puff recipe? The exact same thing the pate choux is made with a cream puff as well. So you could make a batch of this and then you could use it for a variety of things, your eclairs and your cream puffs. So let's go ahead and stand up some strawberries. We're just going to go around and try to pick them so they're kind of the same size and height. So this is super beautiful this time of year. I think that if you put this on your holiday dessert buffet, I think that you would really dazzle your friends and family. Okay, you could do a variety of fruits and like I said, just limitless flavor combinations. This is one of my favorites, especially for this time of year because you have the strawberry in here. And please let me know if you have any questions. Okay. All right, like I said, I kind of try to get my strawberries pretty much the same height. And we have another question.
They asked how long will this last in the freezer?
In the freezer or the fridge?
The freezer.
Okay, the question is how long this would last in the freezer. The shell is something that can be stored in the freezer. You wouldn't want to store the assembled Paris-Brest in the freezer. I usually keep my pate choux paste in the freezer for 2 weeks, and if you pull it out and it's a little soft, you can put it in the oven and kind of crisp it up again a little bit. But the assembled Paris-Brest, you wouldn't want to put it in the freezer because you've got strawberries in here and you have your cream. So this, once it's assembled, you should serve it the same day or maybe the next day because strawberries, they have a lot of liquid in them, which has a tendency to release. So we are going to go ahead and finish this off with some whipped cream and some powdered sugar, and you'll have a super beautiful dessert. It's got a great taste to it. The almonds and the pate choux give it a nice crunch. You have some nice creaminess with your pastry cream as well as your whipped cream. Okay, so this is just some fresh whipped cream that I made earlier. You could top this off with a variety of things. You could even use a mousse if you like. Just really limitless flavor combinations. And please let me know if you have any questions because we're almost done. We're going to be saying our goodbyes. And if I don't talk to everyone, I hope that you have a great holiday. So what I like to do is I'll go around with my whipped cream, and then I kind of put another topper on top. So this is a big dessert. This would be for a buffet. This would probably feed about maybe 18 to 20 people, maybe 15, depending on your friends and family. So you can slice this with a serrated knife. Okay, so this is our Paris-Brest. Let's go ahead and put the top on. And if you have some unevenness, you'll want to kind of put the top on where you took it off. Okay, so there you go, super beautiful Paris-Brest. What you can do too is if you have a little cup that'll fit in the center, you can go ahead and put that in the center, and you can fill this with your extra raspberries after you dust it with some powdered sugar. So I just like to go over this lightly. This would look cute too with some decorations, maybe some holly and berry. Okay, so this is our classic Paris-Brest. Let's go ahead, fill the center with some strawberries. Kind of reinforce that red color and strawberry flavor. And we are going to be saying our goodbyes. So if you don't have any questions, please enjoy the Paris-Brest. And we will see you next time. Thank you, and I hope you have a wonderful holiday. Goodbye.